Welcome to MMOGrinder Backtrack, where we take a look at games we reviewed previously to check out what's new. Today in April of 2018, we'll be revisiting World of Tanks, the off-the-line free-to-play arcade tank MMO that recently fully changed its engine in the game's 1.0 update. Wait, is Wargaming trying to claim that this is the actual launch of the game? All the rest of the updates did have that 0 before every update, but come on, this game has been well known for its heavy-handed microtransactions for years now. As it stands, Wargaming has been making a rather big deal of this update, trying to generate as much hype for the changes as possible, yet there have also been a lot of work put into the game since we've last looked at it. Keep in mind, given the sheer length of time, we're really only going to mention stuff that'll be of likely interest to new players, focusing more on new nation lines or specific mechanics instead of going over every single change made. The most recent Backtrack was in 2013, so you can imagine this game has changed a lot. And yet in some cases, not enough, so let's dive in. While we have a lot of ground to cover, it'd be silly not to mention the elephant in the room. In this case, it'd be impossible to ignore the game's massive graphic overhaul, to bring it into modern-day terms of fidelity. The garage is where the difference, of which is night and day, between the old engine and the new engine will really shine through. First, the lighting quality and texture work has improved tenfold. Perhaps even more surprisingly, there are actual human beings walking around and doing things within the forest encampment. This extends to improvements with the physics system, not just for the tanks themselves, but for the environment as a whole, as stuff like running over fences will send posts scattering over your vehicle, or smashing through a wall can leave rubble atop your tank, though these are just cosmetic and won't slow down traversal or anything. It'd be fair to say the game looks amazing, but there is this feeling of disappointment with the latest update, which we'll be discussing in a bit. The second most obvious change is the sound effects, not only from the old Backtrack, which is pretty extreme, but even from the previous patch. Sound design has been pushed much harder in this. Tanks will sound like proper weighty tanks. Near misses will swoosh by. Impacts have a weighty crack as it rips through armor. In general, everything is this regard that has been vastly improved. Here, have a listen to some of the various sound effects. What is less fitting is the music, which, while good in terms of quality, just doesn't seem to fit the actual game anymore. This includes a track that starts off as a stereotypical bagpipe music, and then transitions into a cacophony of banging and crashing sounds before the match actually starts. Best to bring your own music to this heavy metal slap fight. Now, from the old Backtrack up to now, the game has added several new vehicle lines and entire new nations to the game. Some of these included new mechanics changes that we'll get to when appropriate. Yet the main ones with a brief overview are as follows. Chinese scout tanks are very fast, low-profile tanks with good alpha, but terrible gun depression. Chinese tank destroyers, a line of rather ugly tanks with various oddball designs and well-angled armor. Japanese tanks, both medium and super heavy lines, with the latter being considered a massive mistake by the player base for its inclusion into the game. Czechoslovakian tanks, a light to medium tank line characterized by their incredible autoloader systems, which are viewed as the best in the game. Swedish light to medium to heavy line, with mediums known for gun handling and heavies for their hull down potential, even if a proposed mechanic to change shell bounces was scrapped from their update, which would have made them even better. And finally, the Swedish tank destroyer line, which starts out like a traditional tank destroyer group, but changes to incorporate the new siege mode mechanic for its top 3 tanks. This allows the tank destroyer to reduce power to its movement speed, and instead aim the entire tank like a turret, since the gun system is physically welded to the entire tank and has no traverse on its own. Yet, it wasn't just new tanks that saw some new mechanics, as artillery, widely considered to be one of the most annoying and frustrating classes in the game to play against, saw their own changes as well. Now artillery no longer gets gold ammunition, yet they were made more accurate, with faster firing rates while lowering the alpha and adding a stun mechanic. This stun means that if an artillery piece hits directly on or even near you, your crew will become rattled, reducing their effectiveness to almost 0, and making the tank handling incredibly poor. In theory, this was to make artillery take on more of a support role. In practice, some artillery can still almost kill you outright with a single shot, and the player base hate artillery and those who play them even more so, with the community coining the term sky cancer whenever an artillery hits them. Further changes came to the game's matchmaker, which really did need to be fixed as it led to some heavily unbalanced matches with one side having every field and tank advantage. However, these changes still feel incredibly awkward. Currently, the game goes for a matchmaking system known as 3-5-7 first, which means the match will consist of 3 top-tier tanks, 5 that are 1 tier down from that, and the remaining 7 will be 2 tiers down from the top. The next system that arises if the first can't be fulfilled is 5-10, 5 top-tier tanks and the other 10 1 tier down, with a single-tier game as the last resort. While this system was intended to alleviate the problem of being down 2 tiers by making sure that there were more of them overall, it tended to make the problem worse, as you're far more likely to be one of those 7 poor cannon fodder tanks, just waiting for the top 3 tiers to farm you for damage and kills. If you're starting to see a running theme of Wargaming thinking they have a solution to a problem while making things worse, then just wait, it gets even better. With Update 1.0, Wargaming had every map they decided to keep redone within the new engine, including making balance adjustments to each in an attempt to improve them. What this really did was take out some of the okay maps with a few of the stinkers, leaving in terrible maps like Paris, Prokhorovska, and Mines, while making maps like Erlenberg far worse. It's truly something to see so many of these changes making existing problems with each map far worse, and in Erlenberg's case, adding one of the most glaringly overpowered spots that was somehow missed or ignored in testing. As was pointed out by the community several times, many of these changes tend to be so bad, but the feedback for each individual one gets lost in a massive pile, due to adding all of those maps in at once and not staggering them through release or testing. So how does the game truly stand today? Well, 1.0 looks nice, and that's about all that can be said for it. The gameplay didn't change for the better, and oftentimes will feel worse because the map design followed suit. All in all, 1.0 may feel like a letdown with too much emphasis placed on the visuals, and seemingly no thought into how each map would actually play or feel in combat. There are rumors that some big changes to the game as a whole are coming soon, but we can't hold out for rumors and have to look at what we actually have. Can you still have fun with it? Absolutely, it's still World of Tanks at its core. But to those that were hoping for some dramatic changes, especially with the introduction of a new engine, well, the game really hasn't done much beyond that. I'll be sure to check back with this game and others in more episodes of MMOGrinder Backtrack. Oh yeah, gold ammunition is still a thing, Wargaming keeps making changes that aren't well received by the community and usually increase toxicity, and there are still vocal cries of Russian bias. Some things never change.